I am so glad to see the sun, aren't you, Stuart? We have not had reliable sun this spring, and I don't know what that's all about, but I hear you guys are having crazy weather all over the world. So if your weather has been especially wonky, put where you are and what your weather has been like in the comments below. I'm really finding it fascinating. A lot of you down under have been telling me about it, and I just think it's very interesting. So today is a topic that I've wanted to talk about for a long time, and it's about the value of negative space in your garden. And I'm going to show you how I achieve it. Now, I think that creating negative space is the most valuable thing that you can do. And it is one of the things that gives my garden, I think, its very distinct signature look. The way I prune things, the way I open up canopies to shrubs and trees, and basically how I let the landscape kind of breathe by creating more negative space. And I'll show you some more examples of that as we go through the landscape. But I'm going to start out with a couple of things. Number one, this is a blatant sales pitch, but nevertheless it's very sincere. You guys, I love my baskets that I've been selling on QVC more than I can tell you. They're wonderful. So I keep the small one by my back door with my garden gloves and my pruners and stuff. And then I keep another one here just for weeding. It's great. I wash my greens in it before I even bring them inside. It's really valuable. I'll put links to those below. So now let's come over here, and I want to show you some examples of negative space. And I'm sorry that the light is going to be kind of harsh on some occasions, but nevertheless, we're so glad to see it that I'm not going to complain. Now, you'll notice that I have on a back brace, because interestingly for me, I find that pruning and kind of crawling around in awkward situations where my body is at strange angles is more deleterious to my back than lifting something really heavy. So I am going to wear one of these back braces, and I'll put the link below. Now, I started out, and we're going to try to find the YouTube that I did, I believe it was last year, on pruning up my viburnum to open up the canopy below. You know, this is one of my favorite things to do, and I've started to do it here. You can see my pile of debris. I'm going to finish this up later. You can see all of those suckers down in there that need to be removed. Let me go back in there. I might clip a couple of them. And you can kind of see the impact that it makes as soon as they're removed. I get more definition to this plant, to the viburnum. It also helps, I think, with mosquito control, because it's not quite so lush and there's just not quite as many places for them to hide. But you can see how by just pruning out some of these lower branches that aren't necessary and opening up and exposing all of these trunks to the viburnum, it uncovers the beauty of the trunks and the limbs themselves, in addition to really opening up not only the space of the viburnum, but what you see surrounding the viburnum. So once I remove all of this debris, you'll be able to see this pot so much better. You'll be able to see the other specimen plantings, the yews and things that I have planted around them. So I will continue with this pruning. I kind of like the way that arches over the bird bath, so I'm going to leave that one there. And I've also found, I think, that anecdotally, I think it also improves bloom the next year. So I am creating negative space in here by some very, what I think of as artistic pruning. And I'm going to complete that later, but that gives you an idea of how it opens up this space. Again, we're going to try to find the video that I did last year where I did this in its entirety from top to bottom. Now here's another example. I'm not doing a lot of pruning on my redbud trees right now because it needs to have as much foliage to photosynthesize as possible to feed the tree. Nevertheless, you can see hanging low are a couple of branches that are hanging right on my fence. Now, those I am going to remove once I have a ladder or someone taller than myself to help me. But those that are hanging down low and projecting downward, I'm going to remove those. When I remove that weight, it will elevate this branch, take less stress, or reduce the amount of stress due to weight on this branch. It will elevate and it will open up that area in between. So I'll get a little bit more sky and a little bit more room, and again, a little bit more negative space that will be really, really valuable in this area, especially as I remove all of this debris afterwards. So let me give you another idea, because it's not just pruning up shrubs alone. You may recall that last year, hi Stuart's mom, last week, I opened up the canopy of this gold dust, this Acuba japonica in here. I still need to clean that up a little bit, but you can see the tremendous difference it makes. And it also makes, I think, the garden feel more tailored and less jungle-like. And when there is really aggressive growth after a rain or a very wet, rainy period, I think that's very helpful, especially when things start getting buggy. Okay, so let's come this way. It is Saturday, so there'll be, and a pretty day, so there'll be lots of people out doing lots of things. Now, here is a perfect example of something that needs to be done. I do love this All That Glitters Viburnum, but notice how so many of the branches have started hanging low, and I can't see the beautiful spherical form of the boxwood underneath. You can see that from both directions. So what I'm going to do is slowly expose that form by clipping off parts of this viburnum. And I start out rather conservatively, and then I've got lots of larkspur. By the way, this is larkspur, you guys, that self-seeds here every year ever so beautifully. But I want to expose the form, because one thing I love about my garden is all the clipped boxwood balls, but if you can't see them, it kind of defeats the purpose of having them. And so slowly but surely, I am, in fact, this one I'm going to take off all the way. I probably needed my bigger pruners for this, but where there's a will, there's a way. I want to show you what it looks like. And I am one willful gardener. You can already see, Stuart, can you see that? How I am immediately starting to really uncover the beautiful form of this boxwood. And now I've really missed being able to see it from my kitchen window, especially since I lost some of my boxwood topiaries. So I'm creating negative space, empty space around this boxwood so that you can see it, and it will give so much more of a tailored look to my garden. So there is another example of this, and I'm also going to remove, and I will certainly do more of this later. I won't make you guys hang in there with me for the entire process, but I'm also going to cut away some of the Deutzia that is encroaching on it from the other side. So this is not only to beautify this space, but it's also to ensure that my boxwood continues to remain healthy and doesn't suffer from light competition from things that are also growing in the area. So all of this over here is Deutzia. Then once my larkspur is finished blooming, I'm really not too sad to see it go, because it will then expose this form that much more. Not only the big guy here, but also the little boxwood ball next to it, that also kind of needs a little bit of exposure, because who wants to live in the dark? And it will also create nice, pretty shadows over time that I will find really compelling. So that's another example of creating negative space around a form so that you can appreciate the value of that plant in all of its architectural glory. Now, this is free, you guys. I think some of the most statement-making things that I do in my garden is just by removing stuff. It's by what I'm editing out, not what I'm adding back in. When I first started to do consulting, I think generally the first thing I would do when I would help someone with their landscape, and I only really worked on small garden spaces, is I would look to see what could be removed to expose and really showcase the beauty of what remained. And I think that's true in our gardens, it's true in our homes. For that matter, it's probably true in life. So look how much more beautiful that is, especially if you look at it from this angle, because this is what I will see looking out my kitchen window. I now can see how beautiful that boxwood ball looks, in contrast to all the billowy blousiness of the hydrangeas and even the viburnum and the larkspur. So I'll do a little bit more on this branch here to remove some of its density. But I'll do that later. So now let's move on to another example. Again, I can't say it enough. All I am doing is removing things to improve the appearance of the garden. So this is an interesting observation I made the other day. Stuart, if you don't mind showing back into the potager and how beautiful it looks right now. And my husband and I were talking about this yesterday. I used to have an arbor. Some of you probably recall there was an arbor covered in roses that went in between those posts and into the potager. Now, it gave me a great quality of verticality there. I enjoyed it for years, but now I love the open expansiveness of the space, and how by, again, removing it and creating more negative space, the perception of my garden is that it is so much larger, so much more open, with so much better air circulation. And it's also has exposed really beautiful sight lines that prior to the removal of that arbor you couldn't appreciate. So now I can look directly back there at the dovecote. I can look at all of those whimsical allium ambassadors in there. I can really appreciate the entirety of the potager in a way I couldn't before. Okay, here is another area that every year I work on. So this is a potted space. I typically always have containers over here in this little tiny patio that I laid myself years ago that's right in front of the studio. So I've got a pot here. This is one of my favorite pots. It's a lattice work concrete container, but you can't see it because so much of this has grown around the base. A lot of these things went to seed and they come up through the gravel. Now some of it I want to keep. I love the larkspur, I love this veronica here, but I'm not really fond of whatever this sedum is. I like it in some places, but I don't necessarily like it here. So let's get kind of a very good before picture of what this looks like now. And it's very pretty. I'm not denying that it's not pretty. But look at how much tidier and more beautiful this space looks, in my opinion anyway. Remember, gardening is a subjective art form, and it's all about what trips your own personal trigger. So if you like these here, then by all means you keep it. Me, I really want to expose that pot and help this area breathe a little bit better. Literally, by creating space, more air circulation will get in here, but also breathe in from a design standpoint by giving everything more room to be appreciated. Then I'll just remove everything underneath. I might even remove a little bit of the low hanging geranium, and I can tidy this up. Much more tailored, I think. The lines are much more crisp, and eventually, after all of this veronica has bloomed and all of the larkspur has bloomed, I will pull the larkspur out, let some of it go to seed, then I will pull it out. Eventually, I will also cut back and really reduce the size and the visual weight of all of veronica around the pot. But can you see, Stuart, do you see what I mean? How that really opened it up? I can appreciate the pot that much more. It gives more air circulation. It gets more room for this geranium to grow. And I think it just makes the whole, this whole vignette look a little bit better. Again, I'll probably do that on the back side. You can see that there is more of this sedum growing on the back side of this pot. And I'll probably cut it all the way back as well to expose that boxwood ball that's behind there. The other thing is I can really cut back this sedum. I need to check on what variety it is, but I can cut it back very hard and it will not kill it. And anybody who would want any of these starts happily can take it, stick it in the ground, and it will turn into new plants for them. So I can create gifts for others. Stuart, you might want to take some and take some to your mom. And I've opened up this space dramatically, I think. Okay, here's one last example. And I am going to get my long-handled pruners. If you guys find this helpful, please let me know, because I consider it very much one of the most important signature touches in my garden. Again, it's completely free, and if you do this in your own garden, send me a picture as an example of a before and after, because some of these are really great before and after examples. Okay, this white deutzia here bloomed ever so prettily with tiny white blossoms in the spring. And then this fabulous oak leaf hydrangea is growing in the background. Now, prune after bloom, so I'm going to prune the deutzia after it has bloomed. Now is the perfect time to do that. Why? Because I want to reduce its size. This can get huge. And I also want to give some room around all of these hydrangeas. These are white wedding hydrangeas all through here. There is an incredible blush right there, and there's a whole space in the back that's got more white wedding hydrangeas. And I want to just make this look tidier. So what I'm going to do is come in here with my long-handled pruners and being careful not to cut any of the oak leaf hydrangea because I want it to stay there. I'm just going to cut back lots of this deutzia. Now there have been times when I've cut this deutzia back by, oh gosh, as much as 2/3 in the spring because it just got so large, and I anticipate that it's going to continue to get very, very large after all of the rain we've had and this cool spring. I'm going to do that to this entire plant, and I know that right now it will kind of expose, look, there's some of that Virginia creeper that has kind of insinuated its way into that plant, and I don't like it. So this is going to make some cuts that are going to be a little bit woody at the outset, but I don't mind that because within a matter of days, all of this is going to kind of regrow, put out some pretty new green foliage that doesn't have any of this brown on it from where the flowers have faded. So you can see here that by removing all of this, it improves not only the appearance of the white wedding hydrangeas and this spice bush, which will also bloom in white eventually, in the foreground, but it will also expose and improve the appearance of all of those oak leaf hydrangeas in the background. Plus, it's extremely cathartic, and if you really feel like your life is out of control, then you can come out here and you can do some really aggressive pruning and create some negative space. So hopefully that was instructive, that you guys can see the value of it, the common sense of it, and the fact that you can get really extreme and dramatic results by doing something and not adding 1 penny to your landscape other than just a little bit of sweat labor. So I'm going to finish this. You guys have a great weekend. Well, as promised, here is your fashion epilogue for today. My boots are hunter boots. I got them off of eBay years ago, and I've worn them for years. My jeans are Calvin Klein's high-waisted jeans. I got these at Nordstrom Rack not too long ago. The first pair of jeans I've bought in 100 years, I think. And my shirt is Club Monaco that I got at Goodwill. I really like starched pressed cotton shirts and linen shirts, and I usually wear them with the collar popped up, partly to protect my neck from getting too much sun and from the back of my neck getting sunburned, plus I just like the look. And my earrings came from a store in Salida, Colorado called Currents, and sadly I don't think that store is open anymore. Another accessory that I'm going to tell you about today, because I'm getting ready to put it on, is my back brace, and I will put a link below to this one or one that is similar. This is by Mueller, and I believe I told you a while ago that I kind of hurt my back, and so today I'm going to do some pruning. For me, I actually hurt my back more pruning than I do lifting. So this is my last accessory for you guys. And there's your little fashion epilogue for today.